turn to 1 Chronicles chapter 4. First Chronicles chapter 4, we're going to look at verses 9 and 10. Now, when you open up the book of First Chronicles, the first thing that jumps out to you is that we have 9 chapters of names. I mean, the first 9 chapters they're just genealogies. So-and-so had so-and-so, and so-and-so had so-and-so, and so-and-so had so-and-so for 9 chapters. It's crazy. I mean, it's like you were scrolling through a contact list, and it's just page after page after page of father and son and father and son and father and son, and over and over and over again. And honestly, I think most people get to like the first 9 chapters of Chronicles, and they're like, yeah, let's just go to chapter 10. Let's skip those chapters. Let's go to chapter 10. I thought it was really cool. One year I was at Student Week in Glorieta, New Mexico when I was in college, and I had a class there where the teacher said something really interesting that stuck with me the rest of my life. He said, those names are boring unless your name's there. If your family's name was there, you wouldn't think it was boring. Right? We think it's boring because we're disconnected from it. Okay? They wouldn't think it was boring, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But it's weird because right in the middle of these 9 chapters where you're not learning anything about these people, it's just name, 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 name. And then right in the middle, in chapter 4, we hear a story about one man. It's a man by the name of Jabez. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background to where we are in the story, when this book was written, just kind of give you a little bit of history before we kind of delve into his prayer. Anybody want to guess who wrote the book of First Chronicles, or who at least we think wrote the book of First Chronicles? Nope, not David. Yes, not Paul. He wasn't even born yet, so that would be difficult. Another good answer, though, by Lucas. Another good answer. There we go. Knock it out. Eliab. James? Oh, Jabez? No, he didn't write it. Now, that would be a twist. Like, well, the reason why we wrote about Jabez is because Jabez wrote the book. No, I'll tell you, because I don't want to spend the rest of the time doing this. Ezra is probably the one who wrote this book. And it is actually, even though the story itself isn't about the fall of Babylon or the fall of Israel to Babylon and Babylonian captivity, but the book is actually probably written after Israel comes back out of Babylonian captivity. In other words, okay, eventually Babylon becomes the big superpower of the world. They come and attack Judah. They destroy Jerusalem. They destroy Judah. They take everything and kidnap the people, take the people back to Babylon, and 7 years later, Persia takes over Babylon, and the Persian king tells Israel, you guys can go back home. Ezra is writing this book to connect that generation of people with the generation of people that first entered the promised land. Jabez, actually, his life is probably around the time of the Judges, the book of Judges. It's probably when Jabez lived. So, in this really, really dark period of time for Israel, when they have come back out of Babylonian captivity and they basically have to start over, the reason why we're getting these 9 chapters is because Ezra wants to connect all of these families that came out of Babylonian captivity with their original history. So you read it and you're like, oh my gosh, it's just hundreds and hundreds of verses of names. But think about what this would have meant for Israel. It's connecting the story of Israel in the promised land and getting the promised land to these generations that have come later, and it's connecting them together. And I think that's really, really important. It's basically telling all of these Jews that came out of Babylonian captivity, you're part of the story as well. You're part of this big story. You're connected to it. That's why these genealogies matter. It was about identity. It was about connecting to history. And right in the middle of all of this, it is like God shines a big spotlight on a man named Jabez. He wants you to notice him. Okay? He wants you to stop in the middle of this and go, oh, let's talk about Jabez. God's given us some verses here, not just the name. Now, Jabez wasn't a king. He wasn't a prophet. Wasn't a priest. In fact, Jabez was not famous at all. During the time of Judges, we don't even read about Jabez. We don't even know who he is until literally hundreds of years later. Then as we come back to write the story, we hear about this guy named Jabez. That's going to be an important part of the story. He could have been forgotten on this list just like everybody else. But God wants you to see something. And what he wants you to see is his prayer. It doesn't talk about his accolades. It doesn't talk about his famous military battles that he fought and won. It doesn't talk about any of his supernatural things that he did. It focuses on his prayer, and that's really, really important. Think about this. Out of 9 chapters of names, hundreds of people who lived and died, only one person's prayer was remembered. Had all those other people prayed prayers? From chapter 1 to chapter 9, had all of those people prayed prayers to Yahweh? Absolutely. But there was something about this prayer that made God say, I want Israel to see this, understand this, and so God highlights it. Jabez's prayer. Maybe it means that our prayers matter more than we think. So let's walk through it. I'm going to read verses 9 and 10, and then I want to point out a few things. We'll discuss a few things. I got a few questions for you to go with. 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. Jabez called upon the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my border, and that your hand might be with me, and that you would keep me from harm, so that it might not bring me pain. And God granted what he asked. First thing I want you to see is the junk in the journey of Jabez's life. The very first thing we see is that he's got some junk in his trunk. And I ain't talking about, we all carry around with us trunks of baggage. All of us carry around with us stuff in our lives. Maybe it's from our parents, maybe it's from our grandparents, maybe it's from our histories, maybe it's from something in our childhood, maybe it's something that we did as an adult. Whatever it is, we are all carrying around luggage. And Jabez has his junk as well. Imagine being called a name for your weakest moment. What if your nickname was Failure? What if that was your nickname? And everywhere you went, people just said, hey, Failure. How you doing, Failure? What's up, Failure? What if that was your nickname? You're like, well, that's stupid. The word Jabez sounds like the Hebrew word pain. Every day his name was said, hey, pain. Hey, pain. Hey, pain. Now, we don't know whether his mother lived or died. But this was not just normal pain of childbirth, which is bad enough. Something was happening here at childbirth that was so excruciating and terrible that his mother named him the word pain. You're a pain. I birthed you through pain. This became probably carrying out into his adulthood. You know, it's interesting. How many of you have everybody seen The Lion King, right? Please tell me everybody's seen The Lion King. Okay. The Lion King, not Lion King 1.5. Even that is one, not that one. Can you feel the love tonight? That one. Now, remember, Simba thinks he killed his dad, right? Mufasa. Ooh, say it again. That's from the movie. And so he runs away. And he takes on the identity of someone who killed his father, right? That becomes everything he's about. I am the one who killed the king. And that becomes his identity. And it's not till later in the story that he recognizes that's not who I am at all. And he takes the mantle of king himself. The guilt that may have weighed upon Jabez his entire life, because he thinks, I'm identified with this thing that I did, that I didn't have anything to do with. I was just being born. But that stayed with him. That's what Jabez lives with. It was a reminder every day of who he was. And if people gave you a nickname based upon your biggest struggle, how would that make you feel? Whatever your biggest struggle was, I mean, mine's probably anxiety. What if everybody just identified me as anxiety? Wouldn't that be difficult not to take that on as your identity? I mean, don't get me wrong. When you're a kid, someone can say one thing to you and that can stick with you the rest of your life. I mean, someone could say, oh man, your legs are too skinny. Somebody said that about me once. I have little chicken legs. Somebody said that about me once. Thank God I didn't care too much about it. But you say that to the wrong person, or you make fun of somebody's weight or somebody's hair or somebody's skin, or one thing can tragically change. Now imagine that being the name you're called every day. That's Jabez. But here's what I want you to see. Even though his name symbolized hardship, it says he was more honorable than his brothers. So here's my question first. What does this tell you about him? That's not rhetorical. I would like to know what you think. What does this tell you about him? That his name means pain. Jabez, that's kind of the junk that he's coming into the story with, into his journey with. But then we immediately read he's more honorable than his brothers. Eliab? Wait, you didn't have your hand up. Noel, did you have your hand up? Yeah, Noel. Yeah. Absolutely. There you go. There you go. I mean, I would call on you, Josias, but she kind of nailed it, bro. Like, I mean, there's not a whole lot to add there. She kind of nailed it. He literally begins to live the opposite of this name. He doesn't let that become his identity. It could very easily ruin his life. But instead, the Bible says, instead of that, what he does is the opposite of being a pain. He's honorable. He's honorable in the way that he lives. I love that. His identity wasn't defined by others, but instead he turns to God. And the same will be true of us. If we run to God, instead of running to what anybody else said about us, if our refuge and sanctuary and place of harbor is God, we don't have to be identified with anything that anybody else says of us. 1 Corinthians 5:17, you have this right in front of you. If anyone is in Christ, there is a new creation. All right, how many of you seen the movie Aladdin? Seen the movie Aladdin? Aladdin? One jump ahead of the bread line, two jumps ahead of the place. I don't know, that's not the words, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. In Aladdin, Aladdin finds a magic lamp, right? Genie pops out. It's Robin Williams. If you've seen the newer one, it's Will Smith, but cartoon's better. Robin Williams never slapped somebody on stage. And then, never mind. Okay, here we go. He gets 3 wishes. Anything that he wants. At first, Aladdin is a little skittish. He doesn't know exactly what to wish for, but then he finally wishes. And what he wishes is big. Remember, who was Aladdin? Street rat, scoundrel. Bite back. I don't know the words. What big wish does he make? I want to be a prince. That's a big wish. I want to be a prince. Well, yeah, for a girl, but I mean, that's the reason. That's the reason to do it, though. I mean, that's the reason to do it. He doesn't ask. He doesn't ask for something small. He asks for something huge. He wished to be a prince. Why? Because he wanted to be something bigger, something better, something life-changing, and attract the princess. Well, Jabez asked for a blessing. And look at what the blessing is. He says, "Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my border," or enlarge my territory. Now, this wasn't him being greedy. He wanted God to expand his influence, to expand his opportunity. For what reason? For the glory of God. Now, is God a genie? No. We don't just ask God for something and think we're going to get it. That's not the way that God works. However, when we ask God for things, don't be scared to ask for something big. Jabez prays, "Lord, bless me." Okay, how? Enlarge my territory. Give me more influence, more land. I mean, that's what it meant physically, right? Give me more land. I want more influence. I want more. Jabez lived in the day when they were settling in the promised land. Land was tied directly to God's covenant promises. All right? For Jabez, more land meant more opportunity to provide for his family, to influence people, and be responsible for what gave him. So here's my question I want to ask you. Do you think that this has a spiritual meaning as well? Do you think that he was just saying, "I want land. I just want to be rich"? Or do you think there's a spiritual, kind of a spiritual idea behind asking, "Increase my borders, increase my territory"? Yes and no, and why? Yeah.
I think yes, it was. I think something else. I think he meant to expand his borders and his spiritual connection to God.
Okay.
I think he wanted to be closer to God, not only spiritual, but like spiritual.
Yeah. And because we know he's an honorable man, right? Because we know he's an honorable man, this isn't just about land. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. It's not just, it's about the more I have, the more that you give me, God, the more influence I can have being honorable. The more influence I can have over people, the more I can glorify you, God. Territory can be a symbol of influence, opportunity, and impact for God's purposes. Jabez wasn't saying, "I just want to build my own empire." He was asking God, "Expand my life in such a way that I can give you more glory." It was a bold prayer, wasn't it? "Lord, don't let me live small. Use me in bigger ways than I can imagine." Now, here's my next question to you. Why do you think we struggle to ask God for big stuff? Hang on, let me call on you. Why? Think about it. Why do you think we struggle to ask God to do big things in our lives, Shelby?
I have 2 reasons.
Okay, 2 reasons.
One, we might have asked for big things in the past. You didn't give those.
Maybe we did before and we didn't get it, so we're like, what's the point?
2, we're afraid that it says bad things about us, like that we're being prideful, greedy, whatever, and those are sinful. So then I'm being sinful to ask God for big things. And really that's where you got to check your honor. Right. Why am I asking for this? I had one that I thought of, which was sometimes I'm afraid to ask God for big things because I think if he gives me the big things, I won't be able to handle it. I'll mess it up. I'll blow it. I'll mess up. Lucas?
On top of that, it could be like, maybe here to be a part of it. You know, it's like some part of us does not want to. You don't want to be a part of doing that big thing. We're not brave enough to ask.
Yeah. So maybe it's the fear of like, I'll let somebody else do that. I didn't understand what you said.
I want this to happen for the Lord. It's not for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this would be a great thing if God did it, but not me. I don't want to be the one to risk it. You know what I mean? Like let somebody else do the big thing for God, not me risk it. Andy? Yeah. Yeah, maybe your God is just too small in your mind, and you're like, I don't have the faith to ask him to do those big things, right? I just don't think he does those things. That's just stuff we read about in the Bible a long time ago. Yeah, Novelle? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Here's what Ephesians 3:20 has. You have this in front of you. Now to him being God, who is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think. Stop right there and listen to that. The God you're praying to can do more than you ask and more than you think. No matter how big you pray, guess what? He's capable of bigger. Now, when we ask for the big stuff, we do it from an honorable heart. Okay? We're going to be linking these together here. So, we jumpstart the journey by asking God, God, do something big. God, I want this thing. And it's coming from an honorable heart. Then we've now inviting God to get in on this journey with us. Jehovah joins the journey. How many of you ever seen Lord of the Rings? Okay, Lord of the Rings. All right, Frodo, it's kind of like Narnia. Frodo gets the one ring, but the one ring is very weighty. All right, and at one point he says, I wish the ring had never come to me. And then he gets on Mount Doom. Like you literally can see the opening of where he needs to go into to throw the ring. And the weight of it is too much, and he's done. He lays down and basically tells Sam, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. Too weak, too worn out, too tired, whatever, I can't do it. And do you remember the great line by Samwise Gamgee? Remember what he says? He says, come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it, but I can carry you. And he picks up Frodo and he carries Frodo up the hill into Mount Doom where Gollum bites off Frodo's finger. Jabez next prays these words, let your hand be with me. He knew, if you're going to increase my territory, then you've got to give me the strength to carry what I can't carry on my own. If you do increase my territory, then you got to be with me. Now, in the Old Testament, and really the New Testament, anytime you hear the language of the hand of God or the right hand of God, that is language for power. Lord, I need your power in my life. So think about it. He's coming from an honorable place. He's praying that his territory, his influence, his glory for God all grows. And then he says, but I know that if you don't do this for me, it's never going to get done. I'm not going to be able to take care and glorify you and do what I'm supposed to do with all of this new territory unless you do it through me. Here's my next question. Why can blessing be dangerous? Why can blessing be dangerous? Shelby, and if you haven't answered, think long and hard. I may just calling you out of the blue. Shelby?
Because we forget that it was a blessing. And we forget that it was God's power that did it through us or for us or whatever, that he was with us to bless us with it and not from within ourselves.
Yeah. So usually when God blesses us with greater territory, he expands our borders, he blesses us. Usually he uses means in order to do that. So he may actually use me to do that, right? So God uses me to expand my border. And the temptation is exactly Shelby said. The temptation is to think, well, I did this. Instead of saying, oh, no, but it was God's strength in me that did this. It wasn't me. So that's one way that it's dangerous. Can you think of something else that's why it could be dangerous to get blessing? Yep. Power could go to your head? No, if we get blessed, why could that be a dangerous thing? Shelby said because we could forget that we aren't the ones that did it, right? So we get it and we think, oh, look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished. Look what I've got. Instead of saying, God did this for me. Power might go to our head. Yeah. Ooh. Yep, there's an old rap song that says, too hot to handle, too cold to hold. What if the blessing is so big that we can't handle it? Nolan?
It could create a false precedent of getting blessed every time.
Ooh. So then you start thinking, well, every time I want to get blessed, God has to do this for me. Or then God fails me if I don't get that blessing. Lucas?
You could just not feel a blessing. Feel like God gives you a blessing and you just don't believe it.
Okay.
And that separates you from it because you aren't going through it.
Yeah, so he gives you this giant blessing and opportunity, and you don't do anything with it. Andy?
You get on like a high of the blessing and be like, God's so good, like he did this for me, and then something bad happens and you're like, what? Where'd you go? Like you're not good anymore or whatever. And then you can like launch it home, and then it like repeats itself. When something good happens, you're like, oh my gosh, and then something bad happens and you're like, it can be like a bad cycle.
Yeah, it sets the precedent for you thinking, well, I'm always supposed to be on this side of the blessing. Yeah, the goodness is based upon him increasing my territory. And if he doesn't, then I'm on a roller coaster, like Andy said. I'm up and down all over the place. I'm great with God, I'm not good with God. I'm great with God, I'm not good with God. Let's go to the last one. Oh, by the way, John 15:5. Apart from me, Jesus says, you can do nothing. Last one. Ever seen The Hunger Games? Or read the book, The Hunger Games? Katniss is constantly stepping up for somebody in these stories. Okay? Who's the first person she steps up for? Prim. Her sister. Her name gets drawn. She's supposed to be the one that has to go to the Hunger Games, but instead, Katniss steps forward as tribute to take her sister's place in these deadly games. Now, I don't even know if Prim understood the fullness of the danger. She was young. I mean, I knew she knew it was going to be bad, but Katniss surely knew how bad it was going to be. But her love for her sister led her to step in and shield her sister. My sister's not going to experience this. I'm going to protect her from this. Jabez says next, keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain. That's interesting. Keep me from harm so that I'll be free from pain. What does his name mean? Pain. It's interesting. Keep me from harm so that I don't resort back to finding my identity in my name, but finding it in you. He knew that there were dangers and temptations that were bigger than him, and he needed God to step in as protector. Okay, now, I want you to link all this together. Okay? Link all this together. Why does he need God's protection now? We kind of already set the stage for it in the last one. Link it all together for me. Okay, yeah. Anytime God really blesses you big, there are dangers that come with that blessing. Not from God, from your own flesh, from your enemy. So it could come from within and it could come from without. So follow the link here together. This prayer is it's all connected, right? Here is this honorable man that doesn't want to find his identity in what everybody else says. So he's this honorable man that looks to God. He says, God, expand my territory. Give me a bigger boundary. My influence, my ability to glorify you. I want a bigger influence. Okay? With that bigger influence, guess what he then says? But in order for me to handle that influence and do what I'm supposed to do with that influence, I need your power in me. I need your hand in me. Then he says, and I need you to guard me from any of the temptation or any of the harm that could come in the midst of that. So you see how it's all linking together? Right? This prayer has these connection points throughout the whole thing. The prayer doesn't end there. Look how the prayer ends. Look at the last verse. Look at verse 10. Look how this prayer ends. And God granted what he asked. And God granted what he asked. Now let me ask you this question and we'll be done. Will God say yes to every prayer that you pray? When can you know for sure God will say yes to your prayer? What does Scripture say? How do you know for sure that the prayer you pray will be answered with a yes? It has to be lined up with his will. If it doesn't line up with his will, God will say no to it. When you pray a prayer that is lined up with God's will, God will always say yes. So check this out, please. Listen. God answered his prayer. What does that say then about his prayer? It was his will. Look at me and listen. Look, right here, listen. If you pray this kind of prayer, God will say yes to it. If you say, with an honorable heart, with no pride or self-promotion or ego in it, and you say, God, I want my influence, my territory, my border, I want the sphere of my ability to glorify you to be bigger. You think God will say yes to that prayer? Every time. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be on stage in front of 30,000 people. That expansion may be one more person at school. It may be that all of a sudden now people that didn't listen to you are listening to you. I don't know how it's going to grow, but I know when you pray a prayer that says, God, I want my sphere of glorifying you to grow, I believe with all my heart God will say yes to that. And then if you pray, and Lord, when that sphere grows, I want you to work through me. I want your power in me. Think God will say yes to that? And then you say, God, as you're working through me and my sphere has grown, I know that there are going to be temptations that come to attack me. Lord, Protect me from sin. Protect me from walking in my flesh. Think God will say yes to that prayer? It is my contention that the reason why it ends with, and God answered his prayer, is because everything in that prayer, that will always be according to his will. Always. I look at how God has my sphere of influence has grown. God's given me different ways to do it. When you pray for God to use your life for his glory, when you ask him for strength to stay faithful, and when you ask him to guard your heart from anything that would pull you away, you can be confident that that kind of prayer will be answered by God. Let me read that again. Listen. Basically what I did is I reworded Jabez's prayer, all right, to a modern Christian context. When you pray for God to use your life for his glory, when you ask him to give you the strength to stay faithful, when you ask him to guard your heart from anything that would pull you away, you can be confident that that kind of prayer God will answer. So the question is, will you dare to pray a bold prayer like Jabez? Prayers that align with God's will and invite his power and protection in your life. There was a book, a little tiny book, when I was a senior in college, 2001, called The Prayer of Jabez. It became almost like a mantra where people are like, just get up in the morning, say this prayer, and this is. I don't think that was necessarily the heart of the person who wrote the book. That's kind of what it became. I don't want it to become like a mantra for you, but I do think this is a prayer that could be a model prayer for you. I think you could take this prayer and you could model your prayers around this prayer. God, I want to glorify you. Open up my sphere of influence today to reach somebody else, to minister to somebody else, to talk to somebody else. And when I do it, Lord, I want your power in me. I want your spirit through me. Protect me from my own pride, from my own selfishness. Protect me from anybody that might attack me from the outside. God's always going to say yes to that. The ending up.